In this class we're going to look at competitive advantage. Now, competitive advantage is achieved when companies gain a particular advantage over their rivals. This could be an advantage in marketing or in production, in distribution, in any one of the functional areas. If it's got a particular advantage over them, we say it's got a competitive advantage. And a company is said to have a competitive advantage when it achieves higher than average profits for its industry. So when a company is doing better than the others, it has a competitive advantage. Whatever the competitive advantage is, it's manifesting itself in higher profits. Now, it can be gained through two methods. One, cost advantage, or secondly, a differentiation advantage. The cost advantage is, I suppose, the most obvious. A competitive advantage in terms of cost would be the business's capacity to produce cheaper. And because it's cheaper, it's able to set the price, and the others in the industry must follow. It becomes a cost leader. But it could also differentiate. It could be a company that is constantly changing the product, constantly improving the product, and thereby gaining a reputation as having an innovative approach to marketing, an innovative approach to product design. It's seen as a more dynamic form of business. In order for a business to gain competitive advantage, they must effectively utilize their resources and capabilities, which would then result in value creation. So competitive advantage is something that has to be worked at. It just doesn't happen. The managers in the business must set themselves the objective of gaining a competitive advantage. It's a conscious decision. It's a process that the management must undertake, trying to, if you like, outsmart the competition. So we'd have resources and expertise, and these feed into core competencies. Now, core competencies are just particular ways of making the product and carrying out the business, but they are ways in which are particularly efficient. They're the core competencies. These are what the business is particularly good at. The skills of the business, the type of capital it's using, the way it's configuring itself to produce a product which is efficient. And this generates the cost advantage, or the differentiation advantage. And having got a cost advantage or a differentiation advantage, this gives it a superior value creation stance in the market. Let's talk about resources and expertise for a moment. For a business, competitive advantage can only be acquired through better resources and expertise that are unique from its rivals. So the business should have access to resources which are different to the rivals, and it should be able to configure those resources in an innovative fashion. The idea is to outcompete the rivals, and it can do that by having access to particular resources and then using these resources in an optimal fashion. The resources could be viewed as the company's assets. They're useful for creating value and gaining competitive advantage, which can not easily be copied by the competitors. So the business creates a competitive advantage that the competitors would find difficult to emulate. The competitors can't copy, they can't reproduce. There are all sorts of advantages here and ways of protecting the advantage. patents and trademarks are one good way of doing it. Doing it legally, protecting the business in a legal way. So if it's got a good idea, nobody else has got the idea, it may apply for legal protection of the idea. That means if the competitors use the idea, a legal action may follow. They may have proprietary know-how. They may own the idea and they're the only ones who know how to do it. It's a secret. So the competition can't work out how to do it as well. The company reputation is important. The customers may see the business as a particularly high quality producer of a product that's highly desirable. So the company's reputation is at stake, and the company gains from having a good reputation in the market. And it may have branded its goods, so it's got a certain equity in the brand. Customers see the brand and they trust it, they like it, they've got experience of the brand, so it's seen as high quality. And the brand is, once the brand has been marketed, then subsequent marketing is reinforcement of the brand. The loyalty builds up in the customers towards the brand, and that gives it an advantage in the market as well. But of course the business needs to benchmark its activities. It needs to be aware that the competitors are trying to outwit it. So it must try to get benchmarks to see how well it's doing. It cannot be complacent. It must measure its performance and try to measure its performance against competitors ideally. A company's expertise refers to its ability to utilize its resources effectively from the competitors. An example could include bringing products to markets faster than competitors, or different advertising techniques, or having an effective value chain. It's how the resources are used. If the business can bring a product to market fast, from original draft ideas right through to the final product, and it can do this in a short space of time, it'll gain an advantage. The competitors will find it difficult to match that development. So perhaps it's bringing new products to market frequently, and it has a reputation of being innovative and putting out new products for the customers to experience. A company's expertise cannot be copied easily, as these activities are embedded in the company's daily activities. So the competitors may see what the product is. They may see the product, they may disassemble it and try to re-engineer the product. They may measure it and balance it and check it, but doing it in practice means that the competitors have a problem. They have a problem of tooling up and getting the process sorted out, and that's allowing, or should I say not allowing, for the fact that the product itself may be protected legally. So the competitors have a real problem in trying to keep up and trying to emulate what the business is doing. So a company's resources and expertise put together form its core competencies, which further encourage innovation, efficiency, quality, customer demand. So the resources and expertise form the core competencies of the business. Now, cost advantage and differentiation advantage. Well, a company's core competencies is a means of developing a lower cost structure or a unique product that would provide extra benefit to customers. So the core competencies are important because these are what give the business its cost advantage. This is what the business is good at. It's good at, let's say, production. So its core competency is in production, or its core competency is in marketing. It has a very efficient marketing structure. The marketing personnel have an expertise in the market, have a good reputation in the market, giving the business a core competency. So the core competency generates lower costs, and this will provide benefit to the customers. Perhaps they're able to sell it cheaper or make the supplies more stable in the market. A company's competitive strategy and their position in the industry need to be considered before deciding on their central focus. So the company needs to know where it stands in the industry. How competitive is it? What are the competitors like? What are they doing? What direction is the market taking? What are the latest fashions and trends in the market? What do the customers want? So a lot of it's to do with good and accurate market research, but it's also based on observations, just simple observations of what the competitors are doing, the types of products they're bringing out. Depending on the assessment of likely outcomes, a company may decide to lower cost or to differentiate. So, having looked at the market, having looked at it critically, the business may decide to continue with the product but cut its price. Engage in activities which will lower costs and which will enable it to cut the price in the market, or to differentiate the product. Keep the product going but add new functionality, change the product in some way which makes it more attractive. Now, let's look at value creation. In order to achieve competitive advantage, a business must deliver one or more value-creating activities which provide more value than their rivals. So, competitive advantage is linked to value creation. The business must deliver one or more value-creating activities. And these activities provide more value than their rivals. So it's looking at developing products which are valued by the customer. The customer sees the products, relates to the products, and wants the products. Value creation comes as a series of activities in the value chain. Adopting an effective value chain process allows for value creation. So the value chain itself must be efficient and properly organized so as to allow for value creation. The whole process starts with raw materials. The raw materials are transformed into products through perhaps production. The products then need to be the products have to be designed. They have to be designed with customer requirements in mind, and then they have to be distributed, all of which is adding value at each stage. And the value that appears in the shop or in the outlet at the end, that must represent good value to the customer. In other words, the price that it enters the market at must be seen by the customer as representing good value. A business operated in a value system consisting of vertical activities, including forward integration and backward integration. So a business is generally operated in that value, in that sense. It's moving, let's say, from raw materials through to the final product. So It doesn't mean that the business has to own the sources of the raw materials. It may purchase the raw materials and internally change the raw materials, process the raw materials to make the good which is valued in the market at the end. So it transforms the raw materials into something which is desirable. So it's similar to backwards and forwards integration. It's taking the raw materials, it's similar to going backwards in terms of integration. It's taking the raw materials and then transforming the raw materials into the product, which is similar to going forward in terms of integration. So the value chain is moving from something which is not that valuable, say raw materials, through to products which are valued in the marketplace. And it's that process of adding value, value creation, and then comparing the final product with what the customer is willing to pay. Now there are different ways of looking at this whole cost advantage idea. Michael Porter put forward generic strategies, and these are the subject of separate videos, so I'm not going to deal with them in any great detail here. But at the same time, they do deserve a mention. He stated 4 generic business strategies that could be implemented by organizations if they wish to gain competitive advantage. The 4 strategies in Porter's model look into the extent to which the range of an organization's activities are perceived to be narrow versus broad, and also the degree to which a business aspires to differentiate its products. So Porter developed a framework to look at generic strategies. And without getting into it, that is the nature of the generic strategies developed by Porter. Measure of product differentiation on the vertical axis, so low differentiation and high differentiation, and the range of business activity, quite narrow range of activities or a broad range of activities. And then the boxes fill out what the strategies could be. As I said, subject of a separate set of videos, so I'm not going to labour the point here. Let's move instead to differentiation. The aim is to meet customer demands or needs that have not been fulfilled. That's the idea with differentiation. It's to see what customers want and see if there are requirements or needs of the customer that are not currently fulfilled, and if it's possible to redesign the product or develop the product in a different way so as to more effectively, more fully meet these customer needs. This strategy involves charging a premium price for the product to cover high production costs. The reason being that there is value-added features, better quality for the customers. So differentiation can be adding separate features, new features to a product to make it more appealing to a particular customer. This happens quite extensively in the car industry, where people want individuality. They want the car's basic function is to move people from A to B, but they want the car to say something about them as well, perhaps have a personalized number plate. So they have to buy the personalized number plate, which is a statement about them. Perhaps they want a certain sound system in the car or particular functionality in the car, which is all adds to what they want from the car. They'd have to pay more for it, but it's customizing it to their requirements. It's differentiating the product. Customers will be willing to pay for the product because there is good quality and a brand name associated with the product. For example, Mercedes, BMW, Apple, they're all seen as premium products, and people are prepared to pay more because there's more individuality in the product. Now let's look at cost leadership and look at competitive advantage in the context of cost leadership. Well, here we could think about beating competitors by dominating the industry and be known as the low-cost producer. The emphasis here is to minimize costs, resulting in a reduction in the selling price to customers and hence greater sales. The examples here would be in cars, let's say Nissan, Dell computers, and that's Walmart actually, not Wellmart. So different. It's looking at selling to customers with a low price, and it's aiming to gain an advantage through cheapness, so that it's mass sales, mass production, mass sales. A differentiation focus is to gain an advantage through differentiation. Differentiation only occurs within one or a small number of target market segments. So generally speaking, there is a standard product and then there is a differentiated product that goes with it. So there's a standard car, a standard BMW car, and then it may be customized, it may be differentiated also. So the company's selling, if you like, it's selling two products, the standard one and the differentiated one. Determining the needs of customers in a particular segment may focus the business on opportunities for innovation and differentiating the product so as to precisely fit customer needs. Differentiation is normally fed back through the marketing personnel, people who have an expertise in the market and can identify opportunities in the market for differentiation. So the feedback may come through the marketing department who can see what the market requires and look to influencing the business to promote the differentiation of the product. It's essential that any business opting for differentiation strategy, it's essential that they have relevant research and that they know the customer needs and wants in the particular segment. It is pointless to differentiate unless there is information to suggest that increased sales will follow the differentiation process. Now let's look at the cost focus in terms of competitive advantage. Well, a business aims to obtain lower cost advantage through one or a small number of market segments. So it may look at a market segment and attempt to lower its costs within that segment to try and gain sales there. So the business may look at the entire market and then break it up into segments and try to differentiate its product into each segment and design products suitable for the different segments. The product in this situation is usually very basic. Sometimes it can be a similar version to a high-priced product, but it's cheap. It's cheap and it's aimed at the cheap end of the market. Examples of low-cost strategy include small retailers who feature their own labels and discounted labeled products. So a small retailer may go to a large producer and ask them to make the product and put their label on it. So it looks like it's produced by the small retailer, but in fact it is the same product as produced by the manufacturer, except it's relabeled for the small retailer. And this will give it a cost focus. The idea is that that retailer sells good products, their own products, but it sells them cheap. This happens in retailing in many quarters, in food, in confectionery, and so on. So this class has been about competitive advantage. We've looked at various ways in which competitive advantage may be gained and the type of activities a business may engage in order to generate competitive advantage. And that's all I want to do in this area. So I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.